Hello and welcome to the video. I just want to say a big congratulations. You were the first people to be witnessing me through my new camera. Woo! And what a difference it has made. £800 well spent. Anyway, in today's video I'm going to be talking about calisthenics and weight training. These two have been battling against each other since the beginning of time. They're kind of similar to carnivore and vegans, as in one thinks one is some skinny, malnourished beanpoles while the other group think the other are kind of Neanderthal meatheads. But neither is true, and if they could only just drop their differences and come together, we could make the ultimate dream team.
Alright guys, let's do it!
And that's what we're going to be doing today. So in today's video I'm going to be telling you the pros and cons with calisthenics as well as weight training, as well as at the end I'll be going through my hybrid calisthenics weight training program that I've designed for myself that is probably the optimal way to train in my opinion. So make sure you watch all the video, slap that like button, and let's get straight to it. Let's start with calisthenics. Calisthenics has loads of great pros. The first and most obvious one is that it's absolutely free to do. You can do it anywhere. If you have a body, you can do calisthenics. Granted, sometimes you are going to need some kind of pull-up bar or some kind of rings, but you can pretty much find these anywhere. If you're out and about, you can kind of experiment and you kind of see the whole world as your playground, which is why I really enjoyed it when I was traveling around. Kind of when I was on a hike or on a walk, I would like kind of pitch out, oh, I could use that as a calisthenics park or something like that. So it kind of makes you be imaginative, and the world is your gym, the world is your playground. Calisthenics obviously predominantly works on total body strength, which is kind of the good strength goal to have. What's the point of being super strong if you can't even lift your body up to do a pull-up, or you can't, you know, save yourself if you get pushed off the edge of a pirate ship and you're hanging on the edge? If you've got total body strength, you can pull yourself easily back up, so it's almost like a life-saving strength. Something else I also learned while learning calisthenics is the importance of mobility. A lot of the movements, especially if you're going to be using full range of motion, will require quite a lot of mobility. It's essentially part of your training rather than something you try and squeeze in. So mobility is highly important. It's obviously something that is fantastic for longevity and overall health and wellness. Probably the most luring part of calisthenics as well, but the most difficult, is you get to learn cool skills such as the handstand push-ups, kind of muscle ups, all these kind of impressive skills you can learn as you train. It is cool to be able to pull up like a handstand or your human flag or something like that at a party, rather than my old down as many shots as I can and throw up everywhere party trick. Third and finally, I'd say calisthenics training gives you a better mind-body connection, such as when you're doing handstands or pull-ups. You really want to focus on engaging the correct muscles. With strength training, you should do, but it's very easy not to do. Calisthenics, it's very focused on the mind-muscle connection, creating proper form. For example, with the pull-up, you want to make sure that your scapula is retracted and that you're pulling through your back and not just using your arms to do the movement. Let's move on to the negatives. The first negative is it can be very difficult creating progressive overload because all the movements are so strength based. Going from 8 pull-ups to 9 pull-ups is such a big gap. When using weights, you can obviously add like 0.25 pounds and kind of make increments like that. But to increase with calisthenics, it can seem a lot slower. For example, going from 8 to 9 pull-ups in a set can take weeks upon weeks, and you may just have to progress by improving your form, improving the power, improving the range of motion very slightly. So it can be almost seem like you're not making progress sometimes, whereas when you are weight training, the progress can be very obvious, but you still can obviously progressive overload. With calisthenics, it just takes a lot more mindfulness and strategic planning to make sure that you are progressing in the right way. Certain areas can be difficult to build completely at all. For example, legs are very difficult to progress without weights, full stop. Once you can do so many pistol squats and jumping squats, it's pretty much impossible to build your legs. It's almost like a joke when you're doing calisthenics that you want your legs to be lighter anyway, so it makes doing human flag and planche easier if you have smaller legs. But if you do want to grow your legs for aesthetic reasons, it's almost impossible to do that with just calisthenics alone. And there's also other areas it is hard to grow with just calisthenics as well. Because most movements are compound based exercises, it's kind of difficult to isolate certain areas of the body. For example, the upper chest is very difficult to hit with calisthenics. Upper chest, you really need to do some kind of incline bench. Other muscles such as your side lats are very difficult to work without weights as well. So implementing weights can definitely help you target certain areas, so you can build a phenomenal physique with just calisthenics alone, there are many people who have done it. Many gymnasts look absolutely incredible. If you have a certain like bodybuilder shape physique in mind, it can be difficult to isolate certain areas and work on your weaknesses. And finally, and probably most importantly, and this is something that I noticed, you don't really get a pump when you're training. The training I was doing when I did calisthenics was very skill based, so that may be a reason why I didn't get this, but it's hard to get a pump. Once again, because most of the movements are full compound exercises, it's very difficult to get a pump in those areas because you're pretty much working the whole body. Unless you do like 1,000 push-ups at the end of your set, you're not really going to get a pump from just doing dips and some handstand push-ups. And doing the pump is fun. If anyone to listen to, it's this guy.
The greatest feeling you can get in a gym, or the most satisfying feeling you can get in the gym, is the pump. Let's say you train your biceps. Blood is rushing into your muscles, and that's what we call the pump. Your muscles get a really tight feeling, like your skin is going to explode any minute. You know, it's really tight. It's like somebody blowing air into your muscle. It just blows up, and it feels different. It feels fantastic.
Yeah, so unfortunately you do not get the pump, and that is a big thing I was missing. I didn't realise I was missing until I played around with some weights a couple months ago, and then I was like, oh, the pump. Thanks, Arnie. Okay, so that's the pros and cons of calisthenics. Now I'm going into the pros and cons of weightlifting. Basically, you flip around what I just said, so we'll go through it again. So for weightlifting, it's obviously a lot easier to build muscle. Not that you can't do it with calisthenics, but weight training is specifically done to build muscle. That's the purpose of it. Using weights is obviously so much easier to incorporate progressive overload. All you have to do, if one week you're bench pressing 60 kilograms, the next week you can bench press 60.5 kilograms. So using weights, it's very easy to just make small increments, which make progressing so much easier, and you can kind of almost see your gains week to week, whereas with calisthenics, it can be on a monthly basis. You're going to see any difference in your strength, especially when you become more advanced. And third and finally, and possibly the most importantly, is the pump. Getting a pump while you're working out is probably one of the best feelings you can ever get. You take some pictures for Instagram, you feel huge, and you completely let go that it's all going to disappear within about 30 minutes, and that's not really what you look like, but in the moment it's very real and it's such a good feeling. The cons of weight training can be, you can become very immobile. We've all seen those people who are absolutely huge, built like a brick house, and they can barely scratch their own back. So bodybuilding, you do not need to focus on mobility. You can actually become more immobile as you tighten and strengthen your muscles and don't work on flexibility. You will become more tight and become less immobile, which is kind of dependent on your goal. If your goal is to be healthy and fit, and not work on your mobility is definitely a negative. But if your goal is to be Mr. Olympia, once again, flexibility doesn't matter, though those guys do some flexibility on stage, I believe. So yeah, obviously you need a gym or access to gym equipment, so it's not as simple as just finding a pull-up bar in a random place or just doing some push-ups. You actually need some weights, or you need to find a gym, which is obviously more inconvenient and actually costs a little bit of money. Third is injury. This may not be a real goal, but this is definitely true for me. I used to get injured when I was weight training before, and I think this is once again the lack of mind muscle connection, but also it's easier to kind of push yourself and, you know, attempt to lift weights that essentially you're not capable of doing because you're not using correct form. A lot of people will get rotator cuff and shoulder injuries, which is what I got, and that's trying to bench press too heavy. It's very easy to get carried away and kind of ego lift, whereas with calisthenics, you have your body weight, so you kind of know what you can do and what you can't do. It's very difficult to push yourself too far. So because of this reason, it's much more likely that people injure themselves, and I think that's leaving the ego at the door and not trying to run before you can walk. And finally, relative strength, which is another reason why I believe calisthenics is important. So it's all great getting big and strong at lifting weights, but you kind of really want to be able to lift and move your actual body as well, because it's the body you're living in. And yeah, if you just focus on weight training and not actually doing any body weight training, you can become very immobile and strong, but if you're in the real world and there's not a gym around, you're kind of stuck. That's my pros and cons of weightlifting and calisthenics. And now I'm going to go into my new training plan, which I've started about a month ago. This is an amalgamation of calisthenics and weight training, and I think it's possibly the perfect training setup for someone who's looking for optimal health and wellness, as well as building the best physique and enjoying themselves, which is obviously always important as well. I perform a 6-day split, which is a push-pull legs, push-pull legs. For example, we'll take my push day. I will start with a calisthenics based movement, for example, with a handstand push-up. I'll do 3 to 4 sets, roughly around the 5 to 6 rep range, which is in the strength rep range. This is going to help keep my relative strength, especially now as I'm in a bulk and a weight gaining phase. It's also going to help keep my mobility, and it's also going to help with keeping my skills and my foundational body weight training. I will then move on to some bodybuilding hypertrophy volume work on the same areas. For example, some dumbbell shoulder press just to really build up the volume and fatigue on my shoulders, and then I do some side lateral work to work other areas of my shoulders that could not be worked through bodyweight training. Following that, I will then do some upper chest work, which may be some incline bench and then some incline flies to work the upper chest, which is also another area I talked about that is difficult to work in calisthenics training alone. Finally, I finish with some isometric movements where I would, for example, on my push day would be some triceps, so maybe I'll do some single dumbbell tricep extensions and overhead tricep extensions. Working on isometrics is very important, and once again, easily done with weights, is it stops imbalances. And I found with just doing the calisthenics movements, as you're using both sides, it's very easy for your dominant side to take over. So making sure I focus on isometric isolation movements at the end of my workouts enables me to make sure I'm more balanced. I then finish with one final calisthenics movement, just once again to work on my relative strength as well as my core. So on my push day, I'll finish them with some ring push-ups. This once again helps work my full body, my mobility and my core, and something I enjoy. So I follow this through all my movements, on my push, my pull, on my legs. So on my pull days, I will start with pull-ups, weighted pull-ups, and once again working in the strength rep range. And on my leg day, I will start with either some Cossack or some pistol squats or sissy squats, or some kind of mobility style strength calisthenics movement. And then I'll go into the hypertrophy work followed by the isometric training. And that's pretty much how I do my workouts now. And I'm absolutely loving it. Granted, it's only been 4 weeks so far, but I think combining these two really does bring the best of both worlds, and it's really ignited my fire for training. But yeah, essentially it is bodybuilding with a little bit of calisthenics at the start and a little bit of calisthenics at the end. I also make sure to do lots of mobility, because mobility is super important and something I highly suggest that you do, even if you're just strictly into weight training. It's not just for exercise, it's for life. You don't want to become one of those old people who can barely touch their toes. Looking after your mobility is so important, and incorporating little bits of calisthenics into my workouts makes me stay on top of my mobility, because without mobility, a lot of those movements are very difficult. Anyway, I think that's going to be it for the video. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you've been blown away by the new video quality and sound. We are now on a camera, I think I noticed that already at the start, with a microphone, so this should be crispy, buttery smooth. And yeah, we will be taking the camera for a spin around. I know I said I was getting the camera so I could move away from the window, but I didn't want to film my first video and something go wrong and it'd be like a full day of vlogging or something like that. I thought it'd be best to just shoot an informative video, and yeah, if I haven't done something correct, not too much love is lost. But yeah, I hope you have enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. If you're looking for a workout program, I'm actually giving a free 30-day bodyweight training program on my website. So if you're looking to get into bodyweight training, I have a beginner and an intermediate package available for you. Just trying to give a little bit back during these current times. So yeah, hop on over to PeteOnPurpose.com and enjoy the program. That being said, hope you've enjoyed the video. Please subscribe if you are new. New videos every Wednesday and Sunday, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace!